Well, good morning, everyone. I am so excited to finally have Alex on the podcast. It's been a little bit of a trial back and forth with voices not working and little bugs slipping in to slow up the time frame. Thank you, Alex, for giving us your time this morning. I really appreciate it. And I'm just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are, and anything you'd like to share about yourself.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show, Linda. I've been very excited to talk to you. Look, probably the starting point is I consider myself a pretty ordinary guy. I don't have any background in nutrition. I'm not a doctor. My background is actually in finance, and so it's a very different world to sort of the health world that you're in. But as a passion of mine, it probably started in 2010, where my real interest in nutrition and that world began. So that's probably the most interesting part. So I started back in 2010, where I actually stumbled across a book written by a guy called Art Devaney. Now, at the time, he was a 70-year-old man at the time, but he was an absolute beast. Like he had the blood markers of a sort of a 30-year-old. He was running around with his grandkids and was like physically had the body of someone that was in their sort of 30s or 40s. So that was the real thing that piqued my interest. So from there, I thought, well, I'd love to be that guy. I
haven't heard of that guy. Is it Arthur Vaney?
So Arthur is his name, but Art Devaney. The book that I read was it's called The New Evolution Diet, I believe it was.
Okay, I wanted to look at
I want to check that.
Thank you.
It was so long ago that I read it. So yeah, it was nothing sciencey, nothing nutrition. It was more the evolutionary side, and it really sort of struck me because I went, you know what? When I'm 80, I'd love to be playing footy with my grandkids and delay the onset of aging as much as I possibly could. So not just participate, but be the first picked on their team when I'm an 80-year-old. That would be huge.
That's interesting because a lot of people, I mean, that's my perspective as well, because I've got grandbabies. I've got six of them. So I also want to be that person. But a lot of people come to the low carb lifestyle usually from some kind of a health crisis. That's usually what turns them to this point. So it's interesting to hear that people are starting to think about a low carb lifestyle as a longevity thing, because we all know the benefits as we age, looking after our bodies. You can get away with it when you're young.
Yes.
But I feel like, can you get away with it? Or are you setting up a pattern or a position in your body or pathways that aren't working well for you, so that you do age as you get older quicker?
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And that's where I started. So I was late 20s then. So I'm in my early 40s now. So it was quite a long time ago in 2010. So I thought, you know what? If we're going to try something, let's go all in. So his approach was very much evolutionary. So only eat stuff that's been around for more than 1,000 years or even beyond. It was very much whole foods, and now it wasn't called that at the end, but very much like the low carb, high fat sort of diet. So I did that. I thought I'll go completely commit for a month, see how I go. And then after about a month, then, I'll find that happy ground in between where I don't have to commit. And my realization was after a month, I was like, oh my gosh, I've never felt better in my life. I honestly cannot go back. And that was my big aha moment. And look, even in my late 20s, I got my six-pack back, and I've had one.
Gosh.
And it's
had one ever since. Good work.
Yeah.
I'm still working on mine. It's hiding there still.
It's that wasn't the goal. But it was a nice sort of little side effect. And after that 1 month, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So that was the start of my journey, where I then kind of a year or two later, the next big step was when Gary Taubes wrote his book, or released his book, Good Calories, Bad Calories, which many of your listeners may have heard. But it's a phenomenal book, and it really, for me, was the deal clincher of shining a light on the science behind it all, and also the political side of how we got to where we got to. So once I understood that, then I like to really understand things and pull things apart. And so that really drove me to kind of decide, well, let's dig into this and let's see how far we can not push it, but explore it, and how much benefit can I get out of here, because it was such a dramatic change for me.
Yeah, it's interesting that I feel like people have the perspective of the diet culture where we have to be on a particular diet.
Mm.
And I'm happy to say that once people start eating the optimal human diet or the ancestral human diet, or as you've expressed, the diet that we're supposed to eat, it's not actually a diet, it's a way of eating that we somehow have lost connection with. And I know lately in all the social media channels that I follow, there's a lot of high-class doctors that are trying to bring this whole idea back together. So it's interesting that we perceive that we have to be on a diet, but it's actually just a way of living. And I guess you could even say that we're on a diet of crap food, you know,
Yes.
making us all feel well. That's the diet that we're on, but we need to find the benefit of eating a nutritionally dense diet to feed our bodies properly. Because you don't give, I mean, I think about this when you pot plants, you don't pot plants and feed them with, you know, like a cup of sugar every day. You feed them with the nutrients that they know how to use to make them grow. That's what we do. And we've kind of lost touch with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything, so I'm very much in that camp. So in my mind, our bodies are exquisite machines, like they are incredible. But often call it our brains or our smarts as a species get in the road of all of that. And if we just let our bodies do what they've been designed to do, everything functions really beautifully. So going back to that evolutionary approach, I think my view around the science is the science just explains, it doesn't change how our bodies behave. All it does is an attempt to explain how they behave. So if it doesn't fit that evolutionary approach, then I think the model needs some more work, or our understanding needs to catch up. So
the education needs to be spread.
Yeah, the science just explains just the real world, which is at its core is really what it's designed.
So tell me, Alex, why did you decide to do 5 marathons in 5 days? What was your plan? What was your goal for that? It's a bit extreme. I've told a few people about you over the weekend and they've said, oh, that guy's crazy. What was he doing? That can't be healthy. So why did you do 5 marathons in 5 days? And you did it fasted as well, didn't you?
Correct. Yeah. So the way I explain it, what I set out to achieve was, everyone understands the idea of fasting. So I committed to a 5-day fast, 5 consecutive days. And within those 5 days, I would run a 1 marathon every single day. So there was no feeding after marathons or between any of that. It was,
wow,
it's extreme. So to understand the why, it would be understand the journey that I've come on and through what I've decided around, or what I'd learnt in this space. So one was being very much a kind of adhering to the low carb lifestyle for so long that and the benefits associated with that. The sciencey side of it around the sports nutrition was a realization that that essentially our bodies have 2 main fuel sources. One of those being glucose or glycogen, which everyone understands, and that's the part that everyone believes, particularly for an endurance event, is the part that our bodies need to tap into. Hence the idea of, look, you need to carb load, you need to really get as much energy in that tank as you can before you commit to something as challenging as a marathon. But what that really ignores is that we do have another fuel tank, which is our, I call our fat fuel tank. So that is our other fuel source. Now, head to head, when you put them side by side, our fat fuel, our carbohydrate fuel tank has a maximum capacity of approximately 2,000 calories. Okay. Now, me as a very lean individual, I don't have a lot of body fat on me. I'm about 15% body fat. So on me, my fuel tank, purely in fat reserves, is about 100,000 calories. So 2,000 calories versus the 100,000, absolutely, it is enormous. So part of the why was saying, well, when one is fat adapted and one has committed to the so-called a ketogenic lifestyle, where we can talk about how you do that, but for now, when one is fat adapted, what that means is your body is burning primarily fat as its fuel source rather than relying on the glycogen fuel tank. It means that your fuel tank is so much larger, and what you can do on that fuel tank without needing to refuel can be quite extraordinary. So it kind of, I like to test everything because I figure theories are great, but look, and when you test it on yourself, then I can put my hand up and say that I definitively know that, look, this is the case for me. So coming back to why did I do it? It was, well, now that I've been armed with the knowledge that on me, I have 100,000 calories, which put it in terms of marathons, that's, if I were to theoretically just use that amount of energy to run marathons, ignoring everything else, that is enough energy to fuel me for 22 marathons. So I set myself a target of 5, which is obviously much less than the 22, but it is an aggressive target. So it was, well, look, if this really does stack up, then what a great way to find out and just to really give it a go. So as part of like the other reason is, look, one is understanding, well, is it possible? The other is where in such an environment now where it is believed to be such common knowledge, it's so ingrained around the concept of needing to be loading up on carbs prior to an endurance event, that when I mentioned it prior to doing this, that this is what I'm looking to do, the feedback generally was, 1, you're insane, but 2, like, you will not survive. Like, this is so extreme that you know, you're really putting yourself in danger. So a lot of the work that I had to do prior was to get comfortable that, yes, this is a real thing. And by achieving it, then it does change people's mindset a little bit around saying, well, what I thought was possible was only to run 1 marathon at a time because I have to rely on my glucose. So by demonstrating that I've now run 5, well, I'm hoping it'll force people's minds to change a little bit and at least be open to, look, there is another way to do things. And allow people to choose how they want to go about doing it. But it's more shining a light on, look, there is an alternative rule book to the carb loading playbook, which is, you know, every hour or so having to scoff a gel or some glucose to top up your very small glycogen fuel tank.
The drinks, the power drinks. How did it? Were you at all fatigued during that time frame? Like, did the lack of food, for want of a better word, make you feel fatigued?
Surprisingly, no. So the parts that everyone thinks that would be the most difficult were actually really easy. So there wasn't one period through the entire 5 days in all 5 marathons where I genuinely felt fatigued. But I will draw a distinction between fatigue and soreness. So I didn't have any muscle soreness per se, but ligaments and tendons are a very different thing. And that was the part that took its toll. So my analogy would be, if you figured out that you could now drive your car indefinitely and call it on 1 fuel tank, drive 100,000 kilometers, it's kind of your tires wear out before your fuel tank runs out. So it was the part that really hurt me was joint pain and ligaments. My body was not used to that amount of volume. So I had more energy than my body could actually handle.
So was it more of a mind, like, was your mind, like, I've started park running, just a little 5-kilometer one.
Yeah.
And even in that run, my mind is always trying to tell me, oh, you know, you're running a bit fast or your heart's racing, you need to stop. Did you have all of that mental, and what do you do to get over, if it did happen, what do you do to get over that?
Well, there were 2 things. One, it was actually quite liberating the way that I went about running these marathons. So previously when I'd run, it was like, try and run as fast as I can. And it's always that mental game of, right, push. If it's hurting, then I'm doing the right thing. My goal here was just to prove what is possible to cover the amount of distance that I had to cover, which was 5 marathons. It was 212 kilometers was the challenge, which I had to do. So just getting through that distance was the goal. So my methodology was running to a heart rate. So I would be measuring my heart rate as I ran. If my heart rate got too high, then I would back off the pace and even back to a walk, just to allow that to come back in, which mentally was very liberating because it meant I wasn't mentally trying to push myself at all. It was, look, if my heart rate's out of whack, I need to allow it to come back. And it was really just running around that. Now, the mental side of it, there was definitely a mental element, which was where when my hip or my knee or my ankle started screaming at me, it was, how do we continue to put one foot in front of the other when my body is saying, okay, I've had enough here. So, and I can share with you some tricks that I use to try and get through that, if you like.
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to hear that.
Yeah, sure. So for me, the mental thing was, I prepared for it. So I have a few little sayings in my head. So one of them was that I had my funny ones, which was, look, pain is just weakness leaving the body, and saying that I would say another good one would be when my legs were really hurting, I would think about someone that, look, cannot use their legs. And I'd be thinking, okay, how much would, if I was in that person's position, how much would I give to be able to be in the pain that I'm in right now? And that would totally flip it. And I'm like, okay, I'm appreciating the pain that I'm in.
Yeah.
So
okay.
another mental one. The other was that, look, pain is temporary. It's one of those things. I'll remember this forever, but 5 minutes after, the pain will disappear. But also my other favorite was have no off switch, or I would say to myself, there is no off switch. And if you tell yourself you do not give up, that mental determination, I now believe, can be a choice. So if you just choose never to stop, then that's
it. That's the choice made.
There is no other choice.
So one of the things I always hear about is when you're running is you get the runner's high. Did you get that runner's high? Because I've yet to experience this on my little park runs. Yeah. But what does that feel like for you?
I would describe it in twofold. One, it's very much a mental thing, but yes, I absolutely did get the runner's high.
Every day, or was it for the 5 days, like after you finished running, did you still have that, or does it come after you've run?
It would come on and off, but I felt it because I did quite a bit of training coming into it too, and I felt it. What was interesting, even with all of my training, part of the runner's high would be I would be running early, so I might be out the door at 4 a.m. because I've got young kids. So
got to fit it in.
I have to fit life in. But if you were able to do something early in the day, that runner's high would be, I just feel like I can conquer the world. So I'd come back, have a lot of mental clarity. It would be, I find it almost a sort of meditative state, because when you're running for so long, your mind starts to just have to wander. So that part of it was sort of the mental clarity was really great. The other was on some of the longer runs, where I'd say the first hour it was always really hard, but then after that you hit this moment where it's like I can just run all day here. Like, it's not I'm pushing myself. It's like, for me to stop now it'll take some effort. There is a genuine momentum that just wants me to continue, and that's how I describe that high. It's like I feel great, I want to do more, and I genuinely am enjoying what I'm doing. And not being a runner at all myself, that I was quite surprised by that, because I don't describe myself as a runner.
Okay, fair enough. Did your body composition change at all from day 1 to day 5? What did you notice about your body?
It did. So I tracked everything, so from blood markers and the rest. But one of the key things was I did a full body scan the day before my 5 marathons, and then I did a full body scan the day after. So I'd get a very accurate result.
Is that a DEXA scan? Is that a DEXA?
A DEXA scan. Yeah. So so the DEXA scan does. Well, it measures a whole bunch of things, but one of the key ones is it's a very accurate measure of my total body weight, but also my body composition, being how much fat have I got on me and how much sort of lean tissue and etc. So this blows people away in terms of the 5 days, 0 calorie intake and 5 marathons. I lost in total 3 kilograms. And of that, 1 kilogram of fat was all that I lost during that entire period. Right.
Wow. Gosh, so you lost a little bit of lean muscle tissue, but
so and of that, the lean tissue is one is it's muscle fiber, the other is water, and the other
yes, you did
glycogen.
You did tell me this. Yes, I remember now. Yeah.
So across all of it, it surprises a lot of people, because I would also argue that I've done now the most extreme version of the eat less, move more methodology around weight loss. And I can
absolutely.
I can tell you it wasn't very efficient, losing only 1 kilo with that much effort. There are definitely better ways to do things.
It's massive,
and within a week, I'd put it all back on.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, that's the thing. People want the quick fix, don't they, for weight loss? But it's always it always comes back. Sometimes more than it comes back double. Yeah. So you've mentioned that you had a scan before and after. What was your team? Who was looking after you? Because I know you had a few doctors, or did you have a doctor on board, or was it just that as you were learning, you had a doctor on board?
No, absolutely. Because it is such a call it an aggressive goal, I wanted to make sure that I had the right people to give me the confidence that what I was doing was within, call it the playbook or the scientific playbook of how it should be done. So yes, I had a great team that were helping me, and a lot of that was in the months preceding the challenge, because at its core, the physical part was only one part of it. The real key was getting my body to be fat adapted and adhering to what I needed to do nutritionally to be able to give my body the best chance to be able to do what it did. So yes, I had a team of doctors. I had in this space, you would know, so Dr. Paul Mason, who's obviously very big in the carb space.
Right.
He was my.
How did you get him on board? He's a busy man.
He's a very, very busy man. Well, all these people are very busy, but I tell you what, when you approach someone, and I did just approach him, I said, look, I'm going to do this, whether you help me or not. I'm going to do 5 marathons fasted. What a great opportunity. Look, I'll be your guinea pig. So any test results you want to get out of me, absolutely, I'll do anything you want, because I'm going to do it. So let's see what we can get out of this.
Yeah.
And what can I give back to the low carb community as a data point for this. So he was very enthusiastic from the start and said, look, this is great. This is really exciting. So yeah, Paul Mason was very much, it was very helpful in making sure that I was doing things the right way. On the dietitian side, Dr. Jessica Turton was also
lovely.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. She's been helping me for a number of years now, just on the diet side of things. But she was great around formulating, or just really being a sounding board to make sure that how I'm going about this is the right way. Plus, I also relied on or tapped into one other doctor, Dr. Ian Lake, who is a doctor from the UK. Now
I don't know Ian Lake. Right, okay.
Yes. Definitely a guy that you want to look into. So Dr. Ian Lake, very quickly, is on his background, is he's actually a type 1 diabetic himself. And he's really the reason or the inspiration for me to set myself this challenge, because in 2020, as a type 1 diabetic, him and 7 others set themselves to a goal to do 100 miles in 5 days, completely fasted. So
running?
No, just completing the distance. So some ran, some walked.
Oh, right, yeah.
But he achieved that, particularly. So 100 miles is 4 marathons. In that 5-day period. But as a type 1 diabetic, he was able to do that and demonstrates that the safety and also that is quite possible. So he had, knowing that he was able to do it, gave me some additional confidence in what I was doing. But I reached out to him and said, Ian, I'd love to hear your story. How would I go about this? And he was very instrumental in helping me plan to do what I was doing.
Crazy. So you talk about getting fat adapted in the first place. How long did it take you, do you think? People always want to know, will I be fat adapted after 3 days, which I feel is a bit of a quick expectation. What's your understanding about that? Or how did it happen for you?
So for me, I'd already been living a low carb lifestyle for more than a decade. So I had a bit of a start. And I would argue that I already was fat adapted naturally going into it. So it wasn't a big shift for me. But what I find because a lot of people ask me this, and they, people start to give this a go, I should say. And the results vary on each person. So the best I've seen would kind of be about the 3 or 4 week mark is what it would take. But it could be anywhere from 3 weeks to sort of 6 to 8 weeks for someone to become purely fat adapted. But the benefits of that fat adaptation accrue over time. So it might be for everyone, you're going to see great results in a couple of weeks, and a couple more weeks, and then you get to the point. So it depends on at what level do you say that one is fat adapted is probably.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because the benefits are there. So how do you know personally how much fat adaptation you need for you to get to the benefits of the whole process at the end of the day? Yeah, it's interesting. Is your family low carb as well?
So some are, because so some of them are, and it's one of those things. It's where a lot of people like to give it a go, and so of my family, so I'm talking about my broader family. So my wife and my daughter are both celiac. So that means that they need to avoid gluten. So
yes,
that naturally can lend itself to more of a low carb lifestyle. So
yeah.
but saying that, they're within my household, I'm definitely the one that is probably the
The
extreme.
leading, yeah, it's a bit
Of
like
the
that
low
in mine
carb.
as well.
Yeah,
It's a bit like
that's
that
right.
in mine as well. It's
Yeah,
got to be a forerunner, hasn't there?
That's right. So look, I like to set an example about how I do things, but I do, particularly where, look, my wife, as lots of wives do, run the household, and she's in charge of the kids and does a great job of doing that. So
yeah.
So I'm very much respectful of her approach about how she does things. But across my broader family, like my siblings and quite a few of them are now low carb, and quite a lot of my friends as well, having seen some of the benefits of my journey.
Yeah, good.
Everyone really wants to sort of say, oh, look, I'll have a bit of that, please. This is
yes, please, can
yeah.
I? You're looking so great. That's what I always get told. What are you doing? You're looking so great. And I think, well, it's just what you eat. And I think for me as well, the whole social aspect of going out and then people looking at you weird because you're not having the stuff that they're having is hard sometimes. So sometimes a few carbs do creep in. And that's just what I allow myself to do, because I feel like you've got to have a social life at some respect. When you're going out, it's difficult. And then there's the whole story around vegetable oils and all of that. That's every food that you eat, probably when you eat out, has got vegetable oils in it, and you can't get away from them. That's you.
Yeah, that's right.
I know.
What I was going to say to that is, what I find the sweet spot is just, if people are aware of, call it, the trades they're making with some of those dietary choices. You don't need to be perfect. But if I give you a silly example, which arguably we could probably sort of tear apart a little bit, but I say, right, if you're going out and you're going out for your meal, and let's say you're going to the pub, okay, and I call this my potato calc. It's saying, right, if we know that, call it, if carbs are doing some bad things to us around spiking our insulin, blood glucose, and our insulin levels, which is driving some of this fat accumulation, then we say, right, if our goal is to minimize our spike of blood sugar, if I were to say, right, I'm going to the pub, my one large potato has about 70 grams of carbs, I could say, well, as a guy going to the pub, how many low carb beers could I have to equate to that one potato? And this part is mine. So even with call it a pure blonde or something like that, which is about 1.8 grams of carbs per beer, it's about 36 beers I could have for the equivalent of carb load. Now, obviously there's alcohol in there. I'm not promoting alcohol nor saying that as a healthy thing, but if you're just specifically looking at the carb side of things, the decision then becomes, you know what, if I'm going to have my steak and my potato, I could probably avoid the potato and have 2 beers, and I would be miles ahead in terms of my blood sugars. So yes, I'm not being perfect, but it's a really smart trade for achieving my goals. So
exactly,
that's where I sit with it.
I think I've noticed as well, a few pubs are now have got a low carb beer on tap, so it's easy to make that choice. They seem to have them around.
Yes.
Did you measure ketones at all while you were running?
Yes,
you did.
I did.
So how did you go with that?
Yeah, so I measured them in 2 ways. So I measured them via my like a finger prick test, so measuring my blood ketones, which would be my beta hydroxybutyrate, is what I measured. And I also did a like a urine test strip, so which is a different ketone that you're measuring, but I did do both. So what I found was, even in the lead up to all of my training, while I was continuing to eat, and because I was really committed to making sure I was fat adapted, I was arguably 0 carbohydrate for the couple of months coming into it to ensure I was there.
Good job.
My blood ketones would never get above 0.1 to about 0.3 at its highest, which is
0.3, not 3 points. 0.3, right?
0.3, and that was as far as I could ever get it to go. Not that it was
was that blood or was that the urine?
No, that's blood. That was blood.
Right.
Yeah. Now, but once I started my fasting, day 1 of fasting, I was at 0.1. And then I've got my numbers here. Day 2, I was 1.9. Day 3, 2.1. And it escalated through to my final day where my blood ketone level was 4.3. So it really escalated quite a lot. And the fasting element drove a lot of that. Oh, sorry, Linda. I think I've lost some sound there.
Sorry, I'm back. I was muting myself when I was coughing.
Oh, it's great.
I've only got my blood ketones up to about 4.9 when I've cycled, fasted for about, an hour or something. That has happened to me, but I really find it difficult to have that. I guess because I've been eating a low carb diet for a while now. On the fingerprint, it's hard to get it up in the higher numbers that I'm always striving for, because I think that's where I have to be.
Yeah.
But that's my experience of ketones. But that you did pretty well with that, I would have thought.
Well, look, my view is I don't think targeting ketone levels is a goal. I think it is just a measure of the state of your body at any point in time.
Right.
And my view is, look, while your body is producing ketones, you are in a state of ketosis. And doing that for a long enough period will mean that you will eventually be fat adapted. So are you better at it, so to speak, if your ketone levels are higher? I would argue no. It's just everyone's results are going to be different. And I would not be, my message is, don't stress if your ketone levels aren't at a level because someone else is at that level. It's unique to you. And while you are producing ketones, then yes, you will be receiving the benefits of being in that state.
Yeah, I think people, when they first start the low carb lifestyle, a lot of people are doing it for a body composition change, and the ketone level is the thing they strive for. They always want this high number, because I guess the understanding is for some people that if they've got the high number, it means they're burning fat quicker, so they'll get thinner quicker. Yes. But I don't really feel that that's a true understanding of ketones at all. I think what you're saying is right. If you've got some in your system, you're becoming more fat adapted. And I think the further you go along, from my experience, the less ketones actually show up in all of these tests, because your body's more efficient at using them.
Yes. Yeah, and look, I've had similar conversations where someone will say to me, look, my ketone levels aren't where they want to be. I'm like, well, how are you feeling? I feel amazing. I've never felt better in my life. I'm like, that's the piece you want to hang on to. Like, if you're great, you've got great energy, you've got complete mental clarity, then the benefits that come with that around the weight loss and the measures of ketone levels, I think they will come. But the ultimate goal is, the ultimate objective is, look, we all just want to feel great. And while you're feeling great, you must be doing something right.
Must be doing right. Yeah. So the lead up to your marathon, how much training did you do to lead up to this day when you went on your first marathon?
So from when I set myself the goal, I hadn't run for 10 years, and I decided I was going to do this.
Gosh, okay.
And then I said, okay, well, I better start training. So I set myself a goal of, originally I thought 6 months, but then I sort of stretched it out to a year. And I slowly sort of worked my way up. So
good.
And while I said slowly, often I had a lot of trouble with injuries around sort of calf muscle strains and sort of doing things because I was a little bit aggressive with my training and how I was going about, which is kind of to be expected. So I would, pull a muscle, and it means I wouldn't run for 6 weeks. So I'd be out, and then I'd do it again.
Right.
It was a bit of a battle, but serious training I started would have been probably 3 or 4 months out. And that was just accumulating volume. So I worked my way up to probably a month prior, averaging about 60 to 100 kilometers per week, which is quite a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
But a lot of that would be, again, doing it very slow. So it was about time on my feet rather than how far I would be traveling.
Right, because it's all about your heart rate, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Keeping that heart rate at a constant rate.
Legs was a big part of it.
So a lot of people say that when they're fat adapted and they're using ketones for fuel and they do any kind of physical activity, their recovery is really quick, or they recover way better than they did when they weren't fat adapted.
Yes.
So you've run for 5 days, you've fasted for 5 days. What was your recovery looking like? How did you feel the day after your last run? Do you remember?
Well, I can remember. So the things that I can attest to, and even with all of my training, was I never, ever once got any muscle soreness.
Okay. I've noticed that. I've noticed
no
that.
muscle soreness. So, which was quite surprising because the amount of volume I did. Now muscles are different to ligaments and tendons. So during my 5 marathons, that was the part that was sort of really quite difficult because I was having a lot of pain in, you know, joints because things just weren't used to that workload. But recovery was and as I said, energy wise, every day I had enough energy, and also like the mental clarity. People are like, well, your brain will stop working by you know.
Oh, right. Is that what you heard? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was more, look, your brain needs glucose for energy and all of that sort of stuff.
There is that, isn't there?
It absolutely does. But your body is a very capable machine, and what it does, it'll create its own glucose.
It does. Yeah.
And it'll do so at a rate which is demand driven. The more you need, the more it will create.
Phenomenal, aren't we? You know, when you think about
astounding.
even that little process that your body knows how much glucose it needs, so it makes it for you.
Yeah, that's it.
We're crazy.
Don't need to get in the road. So, and what I tried to do, even through my whole journey of my marathons, was take little videos where it was me just having a conversation, but and you know, observations or cracking jokes, which none of that material itself is really great, but it's been very useful to now look back on and see what mental state was I like. Was I you know, off with the fairies, or was I completely cognizant? And yeah, I can tell you I was very sharp mentally all the way through. I was having conversations while I was running with a lot of people, even taking some work calls, and people didn't know that I was, you know, on day
running
four marathons and still sort of getting work done.
So when you were running the marathons, what was your intake? Were you running on electrolytes or just salt or any? Yeah, what were you ingesting?
So a big part of that was ensuring that my electrolytes were high, because there's no way you can do this purely on water. And hydration is not just about H2O water. Is ensuring that you do get those electrolytes. So there was a lot of planning going into that. But to give you an idea, on average, I would be consuming somewhere between 7 to 10 teaspoons of salt per day.
Wow.
So really trying to keep that very, very high. And my supplementation was around the big electrolytes that we care about, or that matter sort of the most in this challenge, was sodium, potassium, magnesium. So I would top up with some supplementation of particularly magnesium, just to ensure that
for your muscles. Yeah.
But an interesting anecdotal data point was I didn't get a single cramp in the entire 5 days. So not at night or running.
Gosh.
Not one. Not at
That's fantastic. So whoever worked that out for you did a great job. Did you work that out yourself, or?
Oh, well, that was part of where my team came in. So the likes of Jessica and Paul to say, right,
thanks, team.
What do I need to do each day, and how do I make sure that I've got adequate, not only water, but adequate electrolytes through this, because, you know, I'm going to need a lot. So
7 to 10 teaspoons of salt, because we're all, I mean, I understand that you need to drink that much, but for people listening, they might think, whoa, you know, that's so bad for your heart and your arteries and all of those things. But it's one nutrient that we actually need a lot of, especially on a lower carb diet.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the way it was explained to me is, look, our kidneys also do a wonderful job of managing our salt intake. So I, particularly given what I was doing, erring on the side of too much was much better than erring on the side of not enough, because of the consequences of getting your electrolytes out of balance. It can become a deadly situation if your water intake exceeds the balance of your electrolytes, and you become so depleted. Then get really
kidneys suffer
quickly. Yes,
your kidneys suffer. So tell me about you're running a marathon. I have no idea what that looks like in terms of time. So how long was each day of running, and did it get less or more over the 5 days?
Yeah, so probably another point that most people don't realize, I'd never run a marathon before. So the day one of my 5 marathons,
go on in there.
Marathon. So there was a little bit of I don't know what I don't know here, but to give you an idea of time, so my fastest marathon of the 5 was about 5.5 hours. So that's averaging it's at about 8-minute kilometers thereabouts was kind of my target.
That's not too bad. That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, and speed wasn't a goal, but it was kind
No.
of that trade-off. The more time I'm on my feet, the less time I've got to recover before the next marathon. So it
Yes.
was trying
Yes.
to make sure I do it fast enough that I don't burn out, and
Yeah.
so there was a bit of strategy there. But in the end, it was just trying to complete them. So my slowest marathon was about 6 hours 40, I believe. The other interesting thing, the second fastest of all of my marathons was my marathon number 5, which was
True.
my very last marathon, 5 days in, and was the official Sydney Marathon. So
Wow. Oh, okay. That's the one that you did.
well,
And
sorry, one quick story which you may find fascinating.
Yeah.
That the first 4 of my marathons were out sort of at Western Sydney, and I was running around the Nepean River and the Sydney Regatta Centre, where they hold a lot of triathlons and a lot of events. So on my 4th day of my 5 marathons, the Regatta Centre was closed. So I had to alter my course. So I ran just around the river. The challenge on that day, it was 37 degrees. So it was extremely hot. It was very, very hot. So 37 degrees, and being a Saturday around the river, they were actually holding a festival. So they were actually smoking meat all day, whereas I was running around this continuous loop. So in 35 degrees, I was running around an enormous barbecue on day 4 of my 5.
True. And you were
day
thinking,
4 fasted of my 5 marathons. So it was added an extra challenge to the whole thing. But
give me a chop. Give me a chop. You probably
it was, but yeah, thankfully it wasn't too much, and it was. I took a lot of. It helped with the mental strength side of things. It was like, right, what new challenge can you throw at me to make this harder?
Yeah, exactly. Make it harder for me. So when you're running, do you listen to any podcasts or books or music or nothing?
So normally I would, but going into this, my first marathon, I didn't at all, because I was on high alert. Every time I'd run, I'd really kept pulling muscles or doing a few issues. So it was kind of, I would say every few minutes it was doing a self-diagnostics, like, is everything okay? What have I done wrong? I'm just trying to make sure I don't, blow a gasket anyway. So my first marathon, I didn't. My second marathon, I was in a lot of pain with joint pain and hip pain and that sort of thing. So the music became a distraction away from the pain. Yes. So it was a very useful distraction for me to, put on my playlist and sing a song while I'm, running along, just to get my mind on anything other than what I was feeling in my hip or knee or ankle.
That's good to hear. I listen to songs when I'm doing my 5K run. So I'm trying to take my mind off my heart rate. So I have to have the music to distract me. Have you always been a high achiever, do you think, in your life?
Well, what I've been very good at is my persistence. So I like to set a goal, and if I set my mind to something, then I will do everything I can to do so, to achieve that. And across sort of my career, again, finance is my career, and I've been successful in that world. But I think what has led me to my success in that world, I think, has translated over into the nutrition space, which is a willingness to understand, or a desire to understand, and to really dig deep and question everything that I hear. So I'm a CA, a chartered accountant. So it's kind of, I need third-party proof of everything to ensure the numbers stack up. And I've taken that approach into the nutrition world, where if guideline XYZ says to do something, I'll look at the source and I'll read through the source to see, well, does that source support what you're saying? And the scary part is just how often that is not true. So the source does not support the statement. So
there's a lot of that going on, isn't there? So what's next for you with all of this? I guess it's not really a hobby, is it? It's a little deviation from the accounting world.
Yeah, well, that's right. So what's next? So I think the immediate part would be getting what I've done on people's radars, because I think it's a very useful data point for people to say, well, look, there is another way to do things. Often in the low carb space, it is someone comes into it because they have a health issue. So they say, right, I am sick and I'm using this to get better. Where I'm hoping what I've done via completing this challenge is to say, well, look, I was already healthy, but what I've been able to do is something that many would perceive to be extraordinary, because of, again, using all the same principles that got XYZ person healthy. It was able to give me an ability which is beyond what most people could comprehend. And like I said, I'm not an athlete. I'm just kind of an ordinary guy, which I would like to say that, following the science and my understanding and the help of the team that made sure I was on the right track, was able to execute something that many people would deem to be impossible, well, until now.
It's definitely a new way of looking at marathons, isn't it? I guess, as you said in the beginning, opening your mind to the possibilities and learning about what your body's capable of. It's phenomenal what you've done. You must be feeling on top of the world, have all those results and all those numbers, because that's your accounting side coming out.
Well, yeah, definitely.
It must be fantastic. So people can find you at the Keto Marathon. That's your website.
Yes, at ketomarathons.com. I have all my information on there, but and I do have some social media handles on Insta, again, Keto Marathons, and on Facebook. So I'm slowly posting material on there. But look, I'd love to get in contact with, if anyone wants to find out or have a chat about what I did or how I went about it. But
maybe some of my park runners, if they listen to this, they might say, help me do my 5Ks, and you'll think that's nothing. 5Ks, try a marathon.
Well, look, I think for everyone, you've got to start somewhere. And
you do.
I'm hoping, again, what I'm doing is just to inspire people to say, okay, look, there is a way to do this, and find what works for me. And look, also, where people think, okay, I wake up in the morning and I haven't got enough energy to get through lunchtime. Like, it's a busy morning. Well, look, I've done 5 marathons in 5 days completely fasted. I reckon we can get through to lunchtime. And even if that becomes the goal for someone to say, right, we're going to get through the day, where, look, if I'm able to embrace the ketogenic lifestyle, I'm going to have more than enough energy to get through my day, and life becomes, like you're Energizer Bunny again. And what I want to create opportunities.
It does. So what I've noticed when I am more fat adapted, or I don't even know that that's a fair statement, when I notice I've got more ketones or whatever I do, some days I'm really clear in my mindset and I can do lots of things. And then some days I'm a bit tired. Maybe that's when I've not been so on the ball with it all. But it's all a learning, isn't it? It's all learning. And
that's it. And if anything, what I've done starts a conversation with people, because they'd like to say,
sure does.
I didn't think that was possible. How did you do it? And if that is going to get people to say, well, you know what, I probably should look into this keto thing just a little bit more and explore it. To me, that's very empowering, because everyone really is entitled to explore what works for them. So it's a very real thing, and I would really encourage everyone to just give it a go, have an open mind, and say, right, let's just give this a go for a little bit. My only caveat to that would be, if you give it a go for 2 weeks and it doesn't work for you, it's going to be a 3-week window before you get the benefits of it. So really commit to this, I would say, for a month, and say, right, I'm going to commit for that month. Let's see how it goes. Things may go a little bit awry because your body's adjusting during that period. But after that time, then I've genuinely given it a go, and then reassess. Say, did it work for me or not?
And I think the great thing that I see about you sharing the story is people become a bit apprehensive about having ketones. They're worried that they're going to have ketoacidosis and all of these things to cause them problems, where, I mean, us that are in the world of this know that that's not possible, but you've actually shown that it's not possible for you, doing what you're doing. And you were very careful. You had your team with you. You looked after it yourself and did it properly, scientifically, kept your numbers.
Yes.
So you've really highlighted the fact that we can actually do this, which is fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's a very deliberate approach to make sure that I wasn't dismissed as kind of another low-carb quack or something like that, just trying to do something, aggressive to get some attention. So I'd love the attention to be on what I did, not who I am, and showing that, via my website as well, showing, look, there is a lot behind this, which is not just me putting myself through some pain. There is
it's a very good website.
Really demonstrating, I'm really demonstrating kind of the principles that I've learned and applying those for me. So I can hand on heart now say, look, it absolutely is true that you do have a lot of energy when you are fat adapted. And when you can tap into that, then, it's the possibilities become, it's quite exciting. Like, what else can we do?
What else can we do? Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you for giving me your time. I've taken up nearly an hour. We've been chatting of your day.
Oh, thank you.
And I got through without coughing too much. So I'll be glad to have my voice back soon.
Yes.
And I'll get this out on the airwaves later on today or tomorrow morning. So then we can share away and get people listening to your story. That's my goal, to have people listen to you. Thank you. It's been really enlightening.
Thank you so much, Linda. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And look, I love all your work and I've loved listening to your podcast. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.